Well, welcome back, frag heads. And if you're new to the channel, welcome. Well, today we're going to talk about two fragrances from the Dior line. One is that I had not tried was a EDP Rouge Trafalgar. That perfumer, excuse me, I'm a little tied tongue. The perfumer was Francois Dimonchi, and then the 2024 release is a Dior Privé Esprit Parfum, whatever that means. I guess that things have been changing around. You got the purest form of perfume oil is perfume, or then there's parfum, then there's eau de parfum, and now there's these days a straight, a parfum that's straight, and then they have a lighter version of that would be the parfum intense. And now we have something called parfum esprit, probably the same version as an straight, just a new way of saying it. And that one is by perfumer Francis Kurkdjian. Now, Francis Kurkdjian, both perfumers go back quite a ways. Both are very good, but I believe Francis Kurkdjian maybe have a lot more experience from what I know. I'm familiar with him from 1995 with the original Le Male, Jean-Paul Gaultier. And you may know him as he started doing his own releases. He did Baccarat 540 and others. But he has a huge database. But today we're going to talk about his version of Rouge Trafalgar. I got a decant and from one of my favorite places I go, Rich and Luxe. I just ordered a little 2 ml size and gosh, you may can see that. Okay, anyway, still have a really fresh, this is really powerful. This is pretty strong. It's a fruity, hold on, I'm gonna just grab my notes. I really hate to do this to you, but let's go, because I want to keep it flowing. This has a sweet floral gourmand. It's fruity and creamy. At the top, there's a cherry, and I do really get that cherry note. And there are two types of roses used here. In the mid, it's a Bulgarian rose and a Turkish rose. Just a little bit of background about the roses, which I'm a huge fan of roses. My favorite being the Taif rose, but then there are other types of roses, even the blue rose, which is the most rare rose you'll ever find. And there's another rose, I believe you can find it in England and one other place, and it's very rare. It's not blue, but it's a rare rose. But anyway, be that may, when you smell the Turkish rose, it can have a lemony type smell to it, and it's also native to Syria, also grown in Turkey. But yeah, you get that lemony smell. And then when you're talking about the Bulgarian rose, it will have more of that, giving you more of the cherry, strawberry, and raspberry kind of smell to it, as well as green leaves. But together, they come together. I want to go back and say, the Turkish rose really can play well with other fragrance notes, such as jasmine and sandalwood, as a matter of fact. But here, You do also can get a little cinnamon type smell, but as it dries down, it's really strong. It doesn't take many sprays for this bad boy. I do wish that I had tried the other version by Dimanche. It's EDP as well, but I hear there's more feminine leaning than this one. This one leans, I would say, straight up the middle, unisex. I like it. This, I would say, probably I wear fragrances whenever I want, and I suggest you do the same. But there are times when it is true that you wear a certain fragrance and it may smell one way in a moment and another time, and that might be due to the seasons, that might be due to your chemistry, your body. It may be due to some of your changes in your taste that maybe you think that it smells different, but maybe now your nose is probably picking up something else. Also, maybe the fragrance has had a chance to macerate and therefore giving it a different smell that you would remember earlier. So there you have it on this one. The next one I'm going to talk to you about is a Francis Kurkdjian. No, I'm sorry, Francois Dimanche. He created this, and I guess you could say, how would you say this is Feve Delicieuse, and it was created in 2015. And it seems that as far as Dimanche goes, you could almost say his footprint is all over the Christian Dior line, the Feve line, as well as the designer line, and so the more niche line. He's even did I don't know if he's the original person that did Fahrenheit, but he's done Eau Sauvage, the new, and a version of the old. But of course, Eau Sauvage is not new as far as when it came out. I was familiar with Sauvage back in the late 90s, but then of course the latest versions, which I didn't care too much for. But this is a sweet gourmand. It is a spicy, powdery oriental, tonka bean, vanilla, and bergamot and rose. And some perfumers, in my opinion, are really good in certain notes, and some are blended so well you can't catch the notes. But let's just say, like if we were talking about Rouge Dove, he does a really good bergamot. Guerlain, they're really good for vanilla. Certain brands are just better at certain notes that can't be beat, and others are better at some other things. And then it probably depends on the raw materials that they're able to get. Also, how far they can go with their creativity as it relates to the company they're working for. Sometimes their hands are tied. Sometimes they're not allowed to use certain things that you could use back in the day during the vintage days, and now restrictions are placed on them, and sometimes regulations won't allow, especially here in the U.S., unfortunately, making America great again. But I want to say this version here is different than perhaps the version that I had before, and I really wish that I had pulled the trigger on the older, because I believe I believe this is the newer version, which is probably been reformulated. I didn't look and see, but I do believe my nose is not deceiving me, as well as sometimes you just can't duplicate the same thing if it's handmade or if it's manufactured, poured into when they're mixing the fragrances together. And sometimes you'll find that you may buy a bottle and you say, oh man, I really like this. And you go back and you buy another bottle and perhaps it doesn't smell the same. And then sometimes I would always say, lean towards wanting to say, do it or don't do it. But sometimes if you're in the store and you know that you really absolutely love it, but always sample first, even if you had to spray it on, leave the store, walk the mall, wherever, come back in a few hours and give it through to dry down so that you're not just smelling the top notes and you get home and then you find that you didn't like it as much as you thought you did, because fragrances can be addictive. So I would always say, but be it may as it may, if you find that you really like it several hours later and you come back, I would always say sometimes probably you should buy a backup bottle right then, because chances are it has the same amount of oil content inside of it, and you won't have to worry about it being reformulated, or you come back later and you say, damn, they have a new batch in and perhaps it's not as good as the first batch. And so you might want to check that out. But this one here, I can compare it, or some compare this to Tonka Imperial, because both are Tonka dominated. And another thing I might want to tell you is, when you find a fragrance, and years ago we didn't even know who the perfumers were. Perfumers weren't like rock stars. They may have been rock stars to the company, but the company either, or sometimes the perfumer, they didn't want to be recognized for the fragrance. They wanted the fragrance to represent themselves. But these days we get the luxury of knowing who the perfumer is. We also get to know what the notes are. So now you know what you're smelling and why you're smelling it, and what you like about it, what you don't like about it. And so that's a good thing. But it was compared to Tonka Imperial, which I still think I like Tonka Imperial better by Guerlain, even though they're good at vanilla. It's also a little sentimental value to me, because I became familiar with that in the year my mom passed away in 2014. And so sometimes I wish that I had bought a backup bottle of that. I have not smelled the new version. I may try to get my hands on it. A lot more pricey. It's supposed to have more oil content in it, so I may pull the trigger just so that I can always spray it once a year and I remember my mom. So I'm going to let you go. Thanks for spending time with me, and keep smelling good, and hit the like button, share, subscribe. If you want to hit the notification bell, that's fine, but hey, just keep up with me. I'll keep up with you. Send a comment. I'll try to answer them when I can. And like I say, I will always tell you where I get my fragrances from. If I see a good deal, I'll share that with you. I'm not affiliated with any companies. I am not looking to affiliate myself with anybody. I don't need it. I'm just spending my own money because this is a habit of mine I really like doing. This is actually more therapy for me than anything. So, again, Rich Deluxe, or Rich Luxe. Until then, take care.